Okay, 19. All right. Let me write that down and then we'll start. Okay, looks like it's about that time. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Thursday, May 11th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting that I will call to order now. Please, would like everybody to mute their microphones if they would. And if you don't, I will. Okay. So Amber, can you call roll, please? And you'll have to come off of mute before Amber will hear you.
Okay, y'all ready?
Yep.
Wayne Bledsoe.
Here.
Robin Bridges. Phil Chancellor.
Here.
Jana Jager. Mac Lazenby. Mac, you there?
I see him, but you got to come off mute, Mac. Here, I'll unmute you. You got him? Okay.
Got him. Marcus Marshall.
Here.
Warren McCord. I see him.
You there?
Warren, you here?
I'm here.
Okay. Nanette Reese.
Here.
Bob Reitenbaugh.
Here.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
All right. Well, before we start, I want to go over a couple of ground rules, and then we'll dive into it. So, the commission's going to be presenting. Just this is the way we're going to proceed tonight. The commission's going to be presented with agenda items by the city planning department, and a representative for the item will have an opportunity to make comments or have questions of the commission before we actually address and deliberate if they would like to. I'll open the public, once we have the preliminaries done, the presentation done, I will open the public hearing as appropriate. Some things do not require a public hearing. And this will be an opportunity for each of you to say what you want to say about the particular issue at hand. We just want to make sure that everybody gets heard that wants to be heard. And I just ask that you keep your time, your comments to 15 minutes, and please keep the comments relevant to the particular case at hand. After everybody has spoken, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, and then the representative and the staff will have an opportunity to answer any questions. So as issues are being brought up during the public hearing, I'll make sure we take note of them and then address them after the public hearing. Once that's over with, then we'll open the floor to commissioners for discussion, motions, and a vote. And the commission is charged to vote based on applicable state laws, local laws, the city's comprehensive plan 2030, and then the general good of the community. In addition, I'd like to kind of address a couple of things about our role with the approval of subdivision plats. By Alabama statute, a municipal planning body and a municipal planning commission such as ours is the final approval authority for subdivision plats. With regards to subdivision plats, the commission acts as an administrative body and is bound by the limitations contained in state laws, the city's zoning ordinance, and the subdivision regulations that our planning commission has previously adopted. While a public hearing is required on all preliminary plats, we welcome all public comments on these developments. You have to understand that the commission's authority is strictly limited to confirming that the plat meets or exceeds specific requirements that have been codified in the laws and the regulations that I previously described. Now, since we're doing this meeting on Zoom, I got a couple of extra things I'd just like to try and set some ground rules to kind of help us be efficient with our meeting here tonight. So generally speaking, what I would like to do is have everybody, first of all, there's a list of attendees. It looks like there's pushing 30 people that are attending as well. And all of the panelists who are the staff and the commission members to keep their microphones on mute. And then whenever it's time for people to speak, I will ask that you raise your hand. There's a button on your control panel there somewhere that says raise hand, and then I'll try to keep a good eye on, the hands that are raised and recognize you at the appropriate time. And then, so there's a couple of different kind of situations that I want to also address too. There are people that are representing each of the cases. Now, you all are out in the attendees group, and that means I'll have to recognize you so that you can speak. I will ask each of you, you'll be allowed to address the commission after the staff's presentation. You do not have to make a presentation. And so what I would like you to do is, if you do have something to say at the appropriate time, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you. Otherwise, we'll just kind of move along. Members of the public, when we have a public hearing, again, raise your hand and I will recognize you by turning on your microphone. And then finally, commissioners and staff, please keep your microphones on mute and again, try to raise your hands. But if there's a need for you to jump in for whatever reason, go ahead and do that. That won't be a problem as well. Okay, so let's move on to the meeting. So right now we're going to talk about citizens communication, and this particular point in time is a time where if you have anything, members of the public, if you have anything that you would like to address the commission about that is not on the agenda tonight, on the regular agenda, or it might be one of the consent agenda items, and there's about 5 different items there in the consent agenda. So is there anybody that would like to speak at this time? All right, I'm seeing no hands raised. So seeing no one, I'm going to move along. And the first thing we'll do is take care of an item of old business. This old business is Lawn Golf USA. It's PL 2020-00097. It's a waiver request dealing with the fencing and materials. And let's have Katie Robinson. Are you there to address this?
Yes, I am here. Good afternoon. This is a request from Ron Watson for the property located on the corner of DeKalb Street and East University Drive. They are requesting a waiver to the fence requirements as part of buffer yard requirements for property that is adjacent to vacant land by zoning district. The property is zoned CDD and is surrounded by DDH to the south on a majority of that south property line, as well as CDD, which is a single family area. Approximately 483 feet of that south property line is adjacent to the Shelton Mill Townhome development, but that portion is undeveloped at this time, so it's vacant. So they are required a type 3 fence as well as a 20-foot wide buffer. So they are requesting an alternate fence type to that type 3. And a type 3 fence is a 6-foot masonry wall or a stucco type fence, or a 2-foot berm with a 6-foot stockade fence with decorative design, or columns of brick or stone. So what the applicant is proposing is a living green fence along a majority of the property line that would be a vinyl coated chain link fence with Confederate jasmine or another type of vine growing on the fence. And in addition to that living fence, they are also required to do their landscaping requirements along that fence. And you'll see on the last page of the staff report, I've included the landscaping material that they will be required to plant. We do recommend approval of the alternate fence with staff comments. And I will add that the pink portion that you see, since that is the same zoning type as this property is, and is a single family performance home, there is no fence requirement in this location. It is, however, a 15-foot wide buffer yard, and the applicant has agreed to provide an actual type 3 fence in this location to separate the single family neighborhood from the property. Part of the conditions that I mentioned are noted in the staff report, and Water Resource Management has added a condition since your meeting on Monday that although the fence is shown now to be in the location of the 15-foot drainage and utility easement across the south, that when the plans come in for development review team, that the fence will be located outside of that easement. And I received no correspondence on this case.
All right, well, thank you. Now I'm looking at the attendees list, and I don't see Mr. Watson there.
I do believe the architect, Andy Goslin, is on the panel.
Okay, I just saw his hand raised. Hang on, let me get to him here. Okay,
Hello.
Andy, are you there? You have something you want to say about this?
Yes, I'll just add that we're aware of the staff report and this requirement for the fence to be outside of the easement, and we're happy to oblige with that.
Okay, good. All right, thank you very much. Is that it? Okay. All right, so I'm sorry, Forrest, this does not require a public hearing, does it? I'm not.
No, sir. Waivers do not.
Right, okay. Okay, so that brings it up to any kind of discussion or a motion.
Okay. I know last time I had potential issue, as far as the multiple waivers and things that were going on last time. But if the staff is comfortable with this type of fence, then I'm comfortable as well. So I'm ready to make a motion if that's okay. So I'll make a motion
Second.
to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Move to approve PL 2020-97 Long Golf USA Buffer Yard Fence Waiver with all staff comments.
And I will second that. I appreciate the living fence. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, here, seeing no hands. All those in favor, let's see, I guess we're doing a roll call, right? Amber?
We can, yes. I'm ready.
Yeah, I had to do that.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes?
Lazenby,
No.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Okay, we're going to move into the next item, but we have a consent agenda, but we've also have a number of issues that have been, the applicant has asked to postpone. So there's a total of 8 of those items that will be taken from the agenda tonight. Now, what I'd like to do is try to dispense with all that right here up front. And so I'm going to go through a number of kind of administrative tasks just to dispense with all that. So kind of see if we can follow along here. So the first thing I'll do as before we address the consent agenda, one of the items that are going to be postponed till the next meeting is PL 2020-00155 on it's Gibson property annexation. And so the first order of business would be to make a motion from the chair to remove this particular item from the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? This item will be postponed. Okay, hearing none. All those, let's have a quick vote there, Amber. This is to remove the item.
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next, I would like to make a motion, again, I'll make the motion from the chair for the remainder of the consent agenda. It's comprised of meeting minutes from the packet meeting on the 6th of April, the regular meeting minutes from the commission meeting on the 9th of April, and the following 4 items. Item number 3, Brentwood subdivision, PL 2020-00198. Item number 4, the Preserve subdivision, revised final plat, PL 2020-00222. Item number 5, Farmville Lakes, final plat, PL 2020-00225. And item number 6, Yarborough Farms Club Creek bond extension, PL 2020-00210. Do I have a second for the approval of the consent agenda? Or discussion if necessary. Okay, we have a second. Amber?
Okay, Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the new business agenda. And like I said, there's going to be 8 different items that we're going to postpone in total until the next meeting. So I'll go ahead and start with another motion from the chair to postpone the following agenda items until a date certain of 11 June 2020. These items are, the first one is item number 2, which we removed from the consent agenda. And that one is the Gibson property annexation, PL 2020-00155. The next one is Gibson, it's another rezoning action on the same property, which is PL 2020-00156. The third one is Gibson, it's another rezoning action that is PL 2020-00157. The next one would be the Gibson property PDD amendment, which is PL 2020-00158. And finally, the Gibson property conditional use, which is PL 2020-00221. All 5 of those are going to be postponed until a date certain, 11 June 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Amber?
All right, Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes?
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Breitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Okay, finally, there's been another request that we're going to postpone. There's 3 more items that have to do with the property that is there at Hamilton Place, which most of you will know is the property that's being dealt with. It's right behind Publix there in Moore's Mill. And so what we're going to do is I'll make another motion from the chair to postpone all 3 of these items regarding that particular development property until a date certain of 11 June 2020. And these items are item number 11, which is TD Development Rezoning, PL 2020-00207. The second one is Hamilton Place PDD Amendment, which is PL 2020-00208. And the third one is Hamilton Place PDD Conditional Use Request, which is PL 2020-00209. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Amber?
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes?
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Breitenbaugh.
Yes.
All right. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on with our meeting. And so what we're going to start with then, the result is that we'll start with item number 14, which is Tuscany Hills, Section 5, PL 2020-00215. Ms. Kennedy, please.
Yes. This application is from Mike Marr with Precision Surveying on behalf of Haley Freeman Contracting. It's an application for a preliminary plat of a 24-lot conventional subdivision within the Tuscany Hills subdivision. It's located in the northeast of Farmville Road and North College Street intersection, as you can see here. Let's see. The section being proposed is at the end of Canal Court and Sophia Court, and it is currently zoned as DDH, which is Development District Housing. You can see the aerial here, that extension of the current subdivision. We received a phone call from a Mr. Davis that lives at 7145 Highway 280. He mainly called for information as far as his property. Oh, no. His property is this one here. He mainly called for information regarding the orientation of the proposed lots and his property. He also expressed concern that in previous phases, some of the blasting that was going on cracked a few kitchen tiles, and was just curious as to what extent that may be occurring on this section. Staff recommends approval with regards to our comments, and there is one comment in particular that we'd like to discuss with you this evening, and it is from the engineering services regarding road connectivity and standards set forth in the engineering design and construction manual. Allison Frazier is here with us to help discuss that and answer any questions. The applicant, Mike Marr, as well as the engineer, I believe, Brandon Bolt, are with us as well, and they would like to discuss this with you also.
Okay. Thank you. Now, you mentioned before, you mentioned one particular item under engineering. We had some discussion at packet meeting that we talked about. There's 2 of them there at the bottom of the packet for this, talking about connectivity between Sophia Court Canal and Tuscany, and then also a stub out. So that was the other one as well that I guess we want to deal with in particular. Well, does Representative have something they want to start off? Yeah, Ray, and I'll see you there. Okay, I see Mike.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's see. I've got Mike. Wait a minute. I hit the wrong one. Hang on. Bear with me a minute. I'm getting new. I'm kind of new at this. Did somebody just, I'm trying to let Mike Meyer or Brandon Bolt talk here. I'm working on it. Let me see if I can get Brandon Bolt. Okay, so Brandon, I got you live. Can you say something?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you. There you go.
Sure. So we would like to respectfully request that these street patterns as proposed remain as they are shown. This is the last phase of the subdivision. This development's been in development for quite a long time. The rock on this site is a very significant issue for this developer. It has been in the previous phases, and it was for the original developer as well. As we laid out this subdivision, we worked with grades very carefully and made as many small adjustments as possible to minimize the cuts because of the rock that's been encountered in previous phases and the rock that has been potholed by the current developer. It's all over the site, and it ranges from surface level to 4 to 5 feet below the surface. As we have it laid out, connecting these two roads would be a pretty significant cut. So both of those cul-de-sacs are fairly similar elevations, and you're looking at possibly 15 feet of cut and 20 feet of cut on the high side. There's a substantial grade increase in the back of these lots and in between the two cul-de-sacs in the areas that are not being graded. We also had our traffic engineer take a look at this just to provide his input to it. I'm not sure if he's on the line now or not. He was going to try to dial in, but kind of a summary of his standing was that he saw no real advantage to making these connections. It doesn't really reduce the driving distance for anyone that's trying to leave the subdivision that are on these roads. There's no need to connect these streets for fire code. There's currently 45 developable lots on Tuscany Hills Drive and Sienna Place. The additional 6 lots would take it to 51. IFC allows 99 lots. There's, let's see, potential for addressing issues can come from making these connections and confusion on that side too. Be happy to answer any questions you guys have, but I definitely think that it's going to be a detriment to this project to force these connections. The constructability of it's going to be an issue.
Phil, I believe you're muted.
Say that again.
Thank you. I can't get Mike Mayer's microphone to activate. So I'm wondering
Can
if
you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, are you on a phone or something?
No, I'm on my Mac, but I've got 2 computers going because my Mac doesn't have a video. But I think you can hear me now.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. You have something else to add?
Yes, I would like to add just a couple things from Brandon's. One, the 2 cul-de-sacs, the one on Canal and Sophia that terminate, the original layout had 40 plus lots up in that area. Because of the rock and the topography, we are approximately 20 plus lots in those areas. So we've had to decrease the number of lots we were going to get up to that spot. I was also working for Trey Salato and Dennis McIntyre when they were doing this original phase. And Trey said they thought they were opening a subdivision, but what they really opened was a rock quarry. So they spent a significant amount of time blasting rock, trying to make the thing work, and it essentially bankrupted them. So we're trying to avoid getting into a money pit as far as that goes. So that's as far as the connection on Sophia and Canal. I'd like to address the connection on Tuscany or Tivoli, is it Boulevard? The connector road that goes along the creek in the master plan. Were we to carry that forward, we've done some soil borings out where Tivoli or Tuscany the boulevard would connect in a big loop. And there's a lot of organics soils in that area. That's the lowest point on the road, and bringing a road through there would be damaging to the ecology, would be difficult to build. And on top of that, a large portion of that road that was planned in the master plan has since already been developed by Stowe Martin Builder to the east. So there's really not an easy way to bring that stub out road through without losing stormwater detention and placing the road in a ecologically sensitive area with the creek that runs along the east side of this development. If you have any other questions, I'm listening in, so I'm glad to answer anything else.
Okay, thank you. I guess what I'd like to turn to Ms. Frazier and see if, I mean, is this all information that you've had before and comments stand?
Yes, we did receive this information from the applicant. We do understand there's rock there. It's not an impossibility to build on. It does create some challenges. There is additional information, I guess Mike nor Brandon mentioned. There's an existing stub of Tuscany Hills Drive near where Stephanie's Hand is, right there. The current road ends right there as well. So they're also proposing not to continue that through to at least connect to Sophia Court. If you go back, can you go back to the aerial? Yeah. So it does just provide additional connectivity. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So at the end, yes, right there, the existing roadway stops there. The applicant is proposing a lot at the end of that. Definitely would definitely prefer that connect through to Sophia Court as well.
Is stub out that you reference in the comments?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. Warren McCord.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Bolt and others that representing the applicant. One of the things we often hear when we talk about things like stub out, and you are dealing with a very difficult thing, but you always talk about in generalities. Can you give me some specifics as to what kind of economic liability you would be taking on to try to make at least one or more of these connections? You just say it's going to be a money pit. What are we talking about? Can you phrase that in terms of lot per lot or something?
The owner has reached out and tried to get some cost. It's very difficult to get cost estimates on blasting. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've turned in construction plans, and the roads, you know, you can see all the grading in the roads, and there's substantial slopes in the backs of all those. The owner did extend Canal Court to where it presently is, and they said that essentially that entire extension had to be blasted out. So it's hard to put a number on it. It's hard to get a number on it. They want to blast, and they want to excavate in unit prices when you're dealing with things like this.
Well, what about historically? Can you have any historical figures that would help us here? Like the last time they did it, what did it cost, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I feel like he told me it was, is Rick Freeman on there by chance?
If you're on there, raise your hand. I see Mike's raising his hand again. Yeah, I see Rick Freeman down there. Let me see if I can give him access here.
Rick will be able to speak a little better to the cost estimates, but he did get some initially on Canal.
He's not unmuting. Rick Freeman? Hey, Greg, I can't get Rick's microphone to unmute.
Hey, can you hear?
Yeah.
There you go. Rick Freeman, can you say something?
Yeah, the Stone Martin had the blast in their section. That was I don't know what phase it was. And Tuscany was the last phase done in there. And they blasted on the right side, or that would be the south side of Tuscany Hills Drive. And they've got, 60, 80 homes in there. And they blasted, and I talked to Randall Adams, and he told me that they blasted, cost just the blast, not to take the rock off, but just to blast over $1 million in that one phase, not counting the phase that is running parallel to our street.
And how many lots ended up in that phase?
I don't know how many lots in that phase. It was around 59 or 60. Dick's on here with me too, so 59 or 60 maybe lots, but they're more smaller lots, smaller houses, and we're building on larger lots, 300 up to $350,000 houses. And if we had to connect from the Sophia Court cul-de-sac and make it a continuous road to Canal, there was one estimate of over $600,000 just for that area, because I went back there with a backhoe and dug down 2 feet and hit rock. So we know on the cul-de-sac on Canal, we're going to have to blast that whole cul-de-sac to get our infrastructure in and our lots in. And then as you go, that increases uphill. And that was somebody just texted me. Anyway, as you go up the hill, it's going to be increasingly more rock to blast out. So that's our concern, is economically it's impossible for us to do this project. Plus our project is only 22 lots. And so we're only developing half the property we own there, basically. The other half is nice, pretty woods, open space, which I think y'all like. But and there's also entrance to the other property, if that's what Allison is concerned about, from the lower side of the subdivision that's part of Tuscany Hills, I think, on the lower side that they can access. There's several dead-end roads on that phase that lady can access her property to. So this is our last phase in this project, like Brandon said, and we're only getting 22 lots out of it, and we actually stopped the cul-de-sac on Sophia Court because we were starting to hit rock there when I was digging at a pretty high rate of at a very low depth, close to the surface. So that's our concern.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion before I open the hearing? Okay, this requires a public hearing, so at this time, I'm going to open the floor for comments. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. And I'm seeing 32 attendees, no hands are raised. So I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for any questions, comments, or discussion motion from the commission.
Some of our peer instructors and other undergrads. I've got a hand up.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, oftentimes when we consider this connectivity, we only address the street issue and traffic and emergency equipment, but there's a whole lot more going on below the ground with reference to utilities. And I doubt you could connect the sanitary sewers because they have to be laid to a specific grade to drain. But I would ask if there's some way possible through an easement through there, we could connect the water lines with reference to public safety and fire flow and public health without having 2 additional dead-end water lines.
Yeah, Mr. Lazenby, I think they are connecting, what you can see at the very top is a water easement. I think they're proposing that as the connection, kind of where the mouse is, as a connection and loop to tie the 2 effects together.
That's excellent. Sounds like y'all got a grip on it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nanette Reese?
Yes, I had a couple of things. I'm actually pretty familiar with this development as we have owned a house in there in the past. I wondered about I can't see Sophia Way on here under engineering comments. It says we recommend street stub out of Sophia Way. And I don't see that. And maybe there's a different slide I'm missing. The connectivity is going to be tough.
It should be Sophia Court.
Okay. All right. There was a Sophia Way, and I know that changed. That's
Correct.
why I was asking. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there is also a comment on here about cul-de-sac length, and that seems to be okay now, right? When serving 20 or more lots, 700 feet. Cul-de-sac length is approximately 800 feet, though. So are we okay with that?
That's a maximum length. Sorry, another typo.
Okay. All right. All right.
Get
Great.
beyond 20. Yes.
Okay. Got it. All right. So I am probably okay with those 2, but then do not see where the connectivity between Sophia Court, Canal Court, and Tuscany Hills Drive could be provided. I'm with Mac on that. I do like that there is an easement there for availability, but those were kind of my questions. I just wanted to clarify those. So.
Can you go back on the, I'd like to see a better, yeah, maybe that's the right one to look at. Can you point to the connectivity? I see the Sophia Court. Let's see, where is the stub out off Sophia Way? Where's that supposed to be?
It's actually right here.
First. Okay, so that's the main, basically the main entrance to this piece of the development, right?
Yes, it comes down and connects to Tuscany Hills Drive.
Is that an issue, or that's not an issue though, is it? I mean, that's just something we got to make sure we can do.
I'm sorry. Say your question again.
Well, so it's kind of hard to. I wish I had a bigger plat. If you kind of do you connect? If you look at the plat, look at the preliminary plat.
Yeah.
Okay, so show me the connection on that plat to Sophia Way, or I guess Sophia Court, right there. Okay, got it.
So Sophia Court ends right here now. Canal Court ends here now. The comment was really to connect either here or some variation of
Okay.
that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that's the connectivity. Now, when you talk about the stub out, where's
So
that?
that was hopefully providing something this way to the undeveloped property.
Oh, that's different than what I
Yeah.
thought.
You
Okay,
see all this property here?
I got you.
Actually here, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Because where else would you get access to any of that right now?
Right now, there is a stub out.
Cantera Court.
Yeah.
Or Quarry,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I see. Wow.
The old master plan contemplated Tuscany Hills Drive circling around kind of like that and tying back in, which would access a lot of this vacant property. So this stub out exists now. And Tuscany Hills Drive ends right here.
Okay.
So the comment was to connect Canal Court and Sophia Court and then extend this connection of Tuscany Hills Drive into that. They're showing it now. Oops. That's where Tuscany Hills ends now. And they're showing a lot at the end of that. Our recommendation is to continue this road and tie it in.
Can the applicant, I'm sorry, can the applicant answer why Tuscany Hills Drive dead ends into a lot now instead of connecting?
You're all on mute, Brandon Bolt.
Yes, and
You address that
looking at
question?
this and discussing it with our traffic engineer, we saw no substantial benefit in connecting these because there's already multiple access points.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I guess that gets us to a point where Warren McCord, please.
Yes, I just want to clarify with Mr. Bolt. We had been talking about the problems of connectivity in these other places because of rock and the cost of blasting, and that was fair convincing to me. However, when we talked about this connectivity, he merely said he and his traffic engineer thought that it provided no useful purpose. I'm trying to figure out, is he talking about useful purpose to his project or useful purpose for circulation that's concerning our engineering staff?
Well, in particular, so the construction plans were checked for what you see as drawn. I'm sure there is rock there, but that design hadn't been done. The not connecting those two we didn't see that there was a benefit for circulation.
So we're basically dealing with two different opinions, I guess. Okay.
Okay. I guess that brings us to a point where
Can you pull me back to the other map of this where it shows the actual Tuscany Hills Canal and Sophia? So the benefit that the applicant is getting by not connecting Tuscany Hills Drive is one lot, correct?
Two.
Is that really the difference? We're at one lot?
It's two.
Two lots. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Personally, I'm prepared to make a motion. I don't know where everybody else stands. I'd like to move to approve PC Case PL 2020-2015 Tuscany Hills Section 5 preliminary plat with staff comments while omitting connectivity between Sophia Court, Canal Court, and Tuscany Hills Drive. That one comment.
I can second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Is there any further discussion from the commission?
Yeah,
Mac Lazenby?
yeah. Break that motion down a little bit. You're insisting that the cul-de-sacs be connected, if I understand right?
I am
Yeah.
not insisting they be connected.
Okay, all right, I understand. Thank you.
But she
Okay.
is, but clarification is warranted. She is insisting, though, that the comment regarding the stub out of Sophia Way to the undeveloped property to the east stay in the comments. Is that correct?
I will
Right.
amend that to remove recommend stub out of Sophia Way to undeveloped property to the east.
Oh, you take both of those out.
You're correct. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm amending the motion.
All right, so now we have an amendment. Okay, so the amendment is,
All right,
the motion was approval with all staff comments except the connectivity comment. Now there's an amendment to that that says also remove the stub out comment. So well, let's have a vote first. Let's have a vote on the amendment first. So go
I'm not
ahead,
sure it has a second.
No, it does not have a second. My second was the first part of that, her first amendment.
Sorry. Do we have a second to the amendment?
The reason for my amendment is that Sophia Court and that undeveloped land, you can get to that and not have to cross the stream. You can get to that from Cantera or Quarry. So in an effort to not disturb the stream and cross it, you can get there another way.
We have a second for the amendment.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the amendment. So let's vote on that first.
Wayne Bledsoe,
Yes.
Phil Chancellor,
No?
Lazenby,
No,
Marshall,
No,
McCord,
No,
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
No, sorry.
What's the vote there, Amber? It sounds like it failed to pass.
2-5 failed.
Okay, so that failed. So now we're back to the original motion that said remove the connectivity, but retain the stub out language. So we have a motion and a second on that, so let's have a vote, Amber.
Okay. Bledsoe,
No.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
yes.
Marshall,
yes,
McCord,
yes,
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. All right. We're going to move on to item number 15, which is Woodward Oaks Phase 2 PL 2020-00228. This is a preliminary plat approval for a performance subdivision. Mr. Kip.
Yes. Everybody hear me?
Can now.
All right. This is a preliminary plat request for a lot subdivision in Woodward Oaks Phase 2. You recently saw this approved overall subdivision back in September. The purpose of this replatting is essentially to create one new lot. The property owner is Clayton Properties Group Incorporated, and their authorized representative is Brett Basquin. Here. You can see the lots there. That kind of rectangular lot is the new lot being created. And Forrest, if you could advance to the next slide, please. They're wanting to subdivide out this lot to do a kind of community pavilion. Staff has no objection to this, and we recommend approval. And there's an aerial of the property and surrounding development.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Baskin, if you have anything to say, raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going to move along. Okay, this requires a public hearing. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing for anybody who would like to speak. So please raise your hand. 27 attendees, seeing no hands raised. I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for questions, comments, or a motion from the commission.
I move to approve item 15 on the agenda with staff comments.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the commission on this? All right. Go ahead, Amber, let's have a vote.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes?
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is Woodward Oaks Phase 2. This is the final plat for the same property, case PL 2020-00229, and it does not require a public hearing. Is there questions, comments, or a motion from the commission?
Move to approve item 16 with staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Amber?
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is Yarborough Farms Sawgrass. It's a redivision of lots, PL 2020-00240. Mr. Howell.
Yes, good evening. This request before you is a request for preliminary plat approval of a 4-lot performance residential subdivision of 2 lots. As you can see on the prox map here, it's roughly at the intersection of Titleist Way and Yarborough Farms Boulevard in the Yarborough Farms Planned Development District, and with a CDD base zoning district. Forrest, next slide. Thank you. This plat is roughly the general area, the subject area. It includes section E2, E1, and the northern portion of section D of the master development plan for Yarborough Farms PDD. The plat itself is in keeping with the MDP. Most recently, it was approved by the city council to change the use types from section E2 from single family to multifamily, and that is what this plat proposes. With 19 units is what was allowed. Next slide, please. Here's the plat. The road that runs through the central lot is would be a dedicated city right-of-way as planned. The road that runs through the northern lot is a private road as it is currently. And then the third lot down at the base is a single-family lot that's part of the single-family section to the south. There is a greenway access that runs through that lot as per the greenway plan. Next slide, please. Here's aerial. Staff recommends approval. We've not received any comments or correspondence about the proposal. Any of your questions? Phil, you're on mute.
I'm looking over at the attendees. Mike Mayer, if you're still there and want to say something, raise your hand. If not, we'll go ahead and move along. So this requires a public hearing. So at this time, I will open the floor for the public hearing. If you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and I'll recognize you. 27 attendees, I see no hands, and so I will close the public hearing and ask the commission for questions, comments, or a motion.
I move to approve item 17 with the staff comments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Amber?
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, the next item is item number 18, the Academy Condominiums, PL 2020-00219. Ms. Kennedy.
Yes, this application comes from Rob Selby on behalf of CLNS Subdivisions LLC, which are the property owners. They're requesting conditional use approval for a performance residential use, which is a multifamily development at 1630 Academy Drive. This is within the Gardens at Gatewood subdivision. East of the Gatewood Drive intersection of Academy Drive, as you can see in this map. The property is on CDD. The development being proposed consists of 5 new buildings and 23 condo units. This section of the development is located between a previous phase of the multifamily development, as you can see to the west there, and the single family portion of Gardens at Gatewood. The proposed, next slide please. The proposed use is in line with the surrounding, next slide. There we go, okay. The proposed use is in line with the surrounding neighborhood. As you can see, it's mostly residential. The future land use plan has it designated as medium to high density residential. So it is in line with that as well.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. This master site plan was originally submitted in May of 2004 for the original conditional use. We're bringing it up to you again now because there has been a lot of communication regarding this development and conditional use. So just for your all information, we've included it. These 5 new buildings, as you can see, they are in line with the original proposed master plan. On parcel B, on the northeast side of this plan, that portion also went through an additional conditional use application in 2017, which was approved, which is in line with this as well. These items have been brought back to the commission due to the time passed since the original application, as well as name change to Academy Condominiums rather than the Gardens at Gatewood Condominium. As I mentioned, we've received numerous communications regarding this case. I believe a lot of the attendees are folks wishing to speak in the public hearing. So we had a lot of calls on how to register as well as basic information. We did receive 2 emails wanting a little bit more detail or expressing a bit more concern. So I'd like to go ahead and address those for you. Those individuals may also be attendees, so they can comment on their previous emails if they'd like. The first was from a Ms. Thompson, who resides in unit 1409 of the Gardens at Gatewood condominiums, and that is the building that is next to the pool. Yes. Her main concerns were the construction of this new section be in line with that original master plan, particularly in regards to building materials. She stated that the 2017 conditional use and development of parcel B was not in line with the original condominiums, and I believe that's due to the fact that it was a name change. She hopes that this new section will be more in line with the previous section adjacent to it. The applicant for the 2017 conditional use as well as the 2004 conditional use is Rob Selby as well. So I believe he's an attendee, so he can help answer any questions regarding the differences between any phases. The second email we received was from a Mr. Agnew, who resides at 1992 Stephanie Court, which is part of the Hilltop Pine subdivision, which is adjacent, which is adjacent to the single-family residential portion of the Gardens at Gatewood. His email concerned density of the housing of the area, as well as associated open space in relation to that density. In response to his email, we've evaluated the overall open space of this multifamily development in accordance with Table 4.2 and Section 505.06 of the zoning ordinance. Table 4.2 states that any performance residential development in CDD must have 25% open space. And Section 505.06 states a stage development in CDD must have open space ratio of 15% per stage. Previous stages of this development have exceeded the 15%. So that would include parcel B, this previous development to the west of the proposed, and parcel A, where the pool is located. All of those sections exceeded their 15%. The entire multifamily development prior to this new construction is at 29% of its total area being open space. So it exceeds the regulations set forth in the zoning ordinance. With regards to just the general neighborhood, the Hilltop Pine subdivision, first revision, which is adjacent to the single family as discussed, has 1.81 acres of open space, which is 31.7% of its area. So it exceeds the zoning ordinance requirements as well. I believe Rob Selby is an attendee this evening, so he's available for any comment, as well as myself. Thank you. Phil, you're muted.
On this particular map, can you show, like, get somebody there with the cursor and just kind of show exactly where the open spaces are, the open space land is in this development? Kind of give us an idea where it's at.
Yes. Okay. So this aerial is just a little bit out of date, so you don't see the development here, but there's an open space section here designated for parcel B, as well as this portion of that parcel is all open space.
Okay.
Everything above this parking area on parcel A is to remain an open space because it is a drainage easement.
Okay.
This portion here is all included with this phase of the development. And all of this is to remain as open space as well as down through here. We're recommending for this area here to be the open space requirement for this development because it still needs to meet a minimum of 15%, even if the overall development is already over the 25%. And the open space for Hilltop Pines is this parcel here and this section here. Those will remain open space.
All right, thank you. Okay. I see Mr. Selby's here, but if you have something you'd like to say, raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and move on with the public hearing. All right, so this does require a public hearing. So at this time, I will open the public hearing, and if you would like to have something to say, please raise your hand and I will unmute your microphone. Okay, I see Mr. Harry Greenlee down here. Let me see if I can activate you here. And Rob Agnew. Okay, Mr. Greenlee, I've activated you. Go ahead and say something there so we can hear you. Harry Greenlee? Looks like he's not there anymore. Okay, let me try to activate Mr. Agnew here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I appreciate the information about 15%. That's news to me. I'm new in the neighborhood, and since the pandemic, I've maintained some sanity by walking around the neighborhood, as does a lot of other people. And that open space that wants to be condominiums has been just great to see. I mean, there's it's just nature working, right? You know, you see the wildflowers come and go. And I was just really dismayed to see, since I've moved in, now I realize this is very little, very late, as a master plan has been approved like 8 years before I moved in. And I know that this objection that I have is cliche. But I've been dismayed. Every year I drive to work, I see some spot, and then I see a backhoe or something moving the earth. And what's going to happen? There's going to be more condos. And you know what? This neighborhood is getting ugly because of it. And more condos is going to make it worse. That's all I have to say about that. I know that this kind of objection falls on I know this is not something that is a valued opinion. So I'll finish with a question regarding these open spaces that were pointed out. Are they meant to have? Are they meant to be accessible?
Okay, we'll address that. Okay, thanks, sir. Jay Ball.
Yes. Hi, I live on Ivy Drive. So this property would come up to the back of my house. I am worried about some of the privacy, as the back porch of my house would overlook into these new condos. So I'm a little nervous about the privacy about that. But my question is, and it was asked in the email, is will these look like the units that were built across the street, or will they be different, not giving, so that they all won't look the same?
Okay, we can address that.
Answer.
We can address that when we're done with the public hearing.
Okay.
All right. Let's see, is there anybody else? Chip Johnson, hang on, let me activate you here. Greg, I'm having trouble getting Chip Johnson activated. Can you help me out? Well, he disappeared too. Okay, is there anybody else out there that, Harry Greenlee is back. I was trying to recognize him earlier. Let me see if I can get him.
Chip Johnson here.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that. Hey, appreciate all y'all's hard work and patience with everybody. Real quick, the lady before me stole my thunder. I was worried about the architectural exterior of the new proposed development, but sounds like that'll be addressed. 2 questions. First, I think the total addition of development is 23 additional units. I think everybody that's driven Academy Drive knows that traffic can get quite extensively heavy at times. And I'm just wondering if the Planning Commission has worked with the city engineering department, traffic engineering, to determine what kind of additional load is going to be on the entrance into Academy. And then the second question, a little separate. Obviously, if we are staying with the same architecture, would this new development be looking at becoming part of the condo association?
Yeah, that will be something that I don't think we can address at this point. That's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a you'll have to find your condo association and figure that out on your own. That's not a planning commission thing to deal with, I'm afraid.
I appreciate that. I serve on the board for the commission, so or not the commission, but the association. So it's obviously an internal situation and a situation we have to sell it to them. So I understand.
Okay. All right. Well, we can address those couple things. That's not a problem. Okay. Let's see. Anybody else out there? All right. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Let's see. The first thing, Mr. Selby, it looks like you're here. Let me see if I can I ask you a couple of questions?
Come on, Rob. Go up.
See if I can unmute you.
How about there?
There you go.
Okay.
Now I hear you.
All right.
So let's see. A couple of things I wanted to ask. Again, this is not necessarily the purview, but it was a question that's of interest to a number of people. Is the exterior, are they basically going to have the same sort of look as what's already built? Is that the intent?
Yes, the intention is to use the same architect and really use the same floor plan and use the same materials on the exterior. So I think it'll be hard to tell the difference, I would think.
Okay, excellent. And then the other thing, I'm not sure, I think the other 2 questions aren't necessary. I think it's probably all I need to address to Mr. Selby, but this is probably for staff more than anything else. But there was 2 other things that were of interest. One is the question of, is open space supposed to be accessible? I think that's a great question. Well, who can answer that? Is that a...
Yes, there are different types of open space. Some may be accessible. There's also a preservation component in the open space ordinance such that just by leaving the land alone, that also has value. So the answer is yes, but then there are also types of open space that, quite frankly, for preservation purposes, remain as they are and therefore really aren't usable.
Okay. And in this case, I mean, can we have, is there, which category does this particular set of open spaces, you know, here, are they intended to be accessible? What's around this particular development?
It looks like to me, and not obviously not having that image available for the 2017 phase, that most of this is generally of the preservation category.
Okay. And then over to the west side of the development is kind of the same thing?
Yes, that is all wetlands and stormwater detention. So this was, I think this may have been graded just a little bit for runoff purposes, but all of this is undisturbed wetlands to be preserved. Same with here. I apologize, earlier I forgot to mention this pool qualifies as open space as well because it is outside for recreation purposes.
Okay. All right. So the answer is some open space is meant to be accessible, some open space is not. And that's the way the rules are laid out. And then this, and finally,
I would acknowledge that from a zoning perspective, CDD requires the least amount of open space of the zones that require open space. So 15% is on the low end to begin with.
Okay. And this is zone CDD, right?
Yes, sir.
See it. It's not, yeah, there it is. Okay. All right. And then I think I kind of know this other concern. Mr. Johnson kind of mentioned the fact that, you know, Academy Drive gets a lot of traffic and then you're going to put in some more condos and get more traffic. And typically, and I guess this is for Ms. Frazier, if you can just, you know, acknowledge or the other, once there's, would there be a traffic study with this many condos put in place so that you can address that? I know as a matter of course, the city is always looking at traffic patterns, and when they become, you know, there's enough traffic, then they start adjusting and making streets wider and making slow down lanes, and they do all these adjust just for that. Is there anything planned for this particular development?
No, with the number of units they're proposing, it's very much in line with the original master development plan. I do not anticipate any traffic studies being warranted with this, but we will definitely look at it again as they submit their DRT plans. I don't anticipate, this doesn't meet the threshold as a standalone development for a traffic impact study.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, well, that brings us to any commission discussion. Mr. Lazenby.
I get that.
You have to unmute there, Mac.
Sorry, it's to staff. What are the buffer requirements or fencing requirements on the east side of this property as it butts all the single family homes? And have they met those requirements or exceeded them? I just like to know what they are.
Ambulance.
Not required.
Ooh, not required.
And
Buffer fence there.
And none provided, I assume.
Those single family.
I would assume not.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
For their property values.
Any other discussion? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I move to approve PC 2020-2019 with staff comments.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion from the commission? All right, Ms. English.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 19, Graduate Hotel, PL 2020-00223. Mr. Kip.
Yes, sir. This is a request for conditional use approval or recommendation to City Council. Property owner is Anders Enterprises, LLC. Representative is Parker Lewis. The request is for a hotel use to be located at 202 West Magnolia Avenue, where the Anders bookstore currently is. The property is zoned urban core. Staff is recommending approval, but I did want to point out that the required parking has not been met at this time, and they have submitted a parking waiver to be handled by the planning director to reduce the parking from 258 spaces required parking to 121 spaces. Here's a site plan showing the kind of some of the parking would be below ground. There'd be a banquet, conference center, lobby, restaurant, and fitness center. If you could advance the next slide, please. These are some preliminary renderings of the architecture. These would go before the downtown review committee, but it would essentially be a 5-story hotel with 177 hotel rooms, along with the additional amenities that I mentioned. If you could just go to the aerial. And here's an aerial showing the subject property. We did receive 2 correspondences, one from the owners of the Collegiate Hotel about parking, specifically one, the site that contains parking, and another comment from another resident, essentially with the same concerns about parking downtown. Happy to answer any questions, and I believe Parker is also available.
Okay, thank you. And I see Parker's raised his hand. Before I recognize you there, Parker, let me ask a question of Mr. Cotton. What the parking? How's that going to be dealt with? Because typically we deal with parking issues as part of a use. So I guess this is something that's unusual to me, that we're pulling that out of the consideration. And I guess I'd just like you to kind of address that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we've got a provision in the parking section of our ordinance where non-residential parking requirements, a waiver request can be made to the planning director. So it's an administrative waiver. That request has been made. I have reviewed the analysis that we received from Skipper Engineering. I have put a call in to their engineer that performed the study with some questions that I already have. And in addition to that, I'm performing my own independent research and benchmarking to take a look at what has been done in other communities and why and so forth. So this is not, the request is substantial. And as a result, the review is going to be deliberate, and I don't intend to be rushed in coming up with a decision.
Okay, good. But in any case, we should be considering this use without that being an issue.
Yes.
During these deliberations, right?
Based on the way the ordinance is written, that is an administrative avenue that the applicant has elected to.
Okay. I've given Parker Lewis, you've got the microphone there. You have something you want to add?
Yes. Can you hear me, Phil?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Just wanted to tell you we're here and available. I'm on the call. A couple of representatives from HPA Architecture are on with us from Chicago. A couple of representatives from Graduate Hotels are with us. Nancy Davis, who's serving as the local legal counsel for the project, and the owner is also with us. So we're available, be
Okay.
happy to answer any questions.
Sounds great. Okay, thank you much. All right. Okay, well, at this point, this does require a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. I see a couple of people already raising their hand. I saw Brian Worth first, so let me activate your microphone here. Okay, Mr. Worth.
Good evening. This is actually Miss Worth. Brian does not have a frog in his throat, but he's here with me. So I just wanted to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak this evening. As I mentioned, I'm Kim Worth. Brian and I together own and operate the Collegian Hotel in downtown Auburn. And we're also residents of downtown. Our family of 5 lives next door to the hotel on Gay Street. So we're speaking to the group as business owners and then also residents of downtown. And we wanted to speak to the commission tonight specifically to voice our opposition for the conditional use approval for the 177-room graduate hotel to be built on the Anders property, as you guys have mentioned, at 202 West Magnolia in its current form. As noted in the e-packet on pages 131 and 132, where the team references section 803.04 of the Auburn zoning code. And it requires that, and I'm quoting here, the proposed use of the location shall not result in a substantial or undue adverse effect on adjacent property, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, parking, and then it goes on to list other items. I'm mentioning that because our specific opposition to this project as proposed at this specific location is centered on the 2 areas that we do think has an adverse effect on downtown and the community, specifically the traffic and the biggest issue, which is parking, which has already been addressed. Brian and I, with some of the members on this call, were before this committee less than 36 months ago as we worked to develop our own hotel downtown project. And we were dedicated to repurposing the Whittle dorm. And like any smart business people, we were also trying to enhance the downtown while bringing on the greatest return for our investment. Our original hotel plans for the Collegian Hotel were for 60 plus rooms. Our obstacle to getting that approved was on-site parking, specifically through the team that's on this call. And it's important to clarify that as I talk through this, I'm talking about on-site parking as it relates to our current business and also the proposed hotel, the graduate hotel. Despite numerous attempts to work with the city's team, we were not allowed a variance to build any more hotel rooms than we could provide on-site parking for. We additionally requested a variance to lease additional parking spaces to offset parking needs. This request was denied by the city's team multiple times. The city was adamant we must provide on-site parking for the number of hotel rooms built, which is why we have a 40-room hotel. The city comments to the current graduate hotel proposal on-site variance represents a 180 to the current precedent and conflicts with its own ordinance. This is surprising to us since I'm unaware of any significant improvements that have been made to Auburn's downtown parking situation in the past 36 months. The second issue we have is traffic. We did see that there will be a traffic study prepared for this proposal with the 177-room hotel, restaurant, and conference center, and we're definitely eager to see that study. Brian and I are pro-growth business owners. We came to Auburn as entrepreneurs to build a hotel, and we feel fortunate to live and own a business downtown. As hotel operators working in this community, we know firsthand the challenges and needs that go into the day-to-day mechanics of running a hotel. We also know customer expectations, how guests move, walk, and drive around downtown. We want to be clear, our issue is not with the proposed hotel development downtown. We're hopeful like anyone else. The graduate hotels are completely closed down. They've been closed down for months. We want the industry to recover. We all need the industry to recover, and I'm hoping that that growth can eventually accommodate more hotel rooms downtown. Our issue is with the city's planning office decision to put forth a drastic deviation from the parking ordinance that would allow this project, again, 177 rooms, on-site restaurant, conference space in one of the most congested areas of downtown, move forward with a significant shortfall of on-site parking. Common sense would dictate, at least to us, if we can't meet the city minimum of 1 parking spot per room, then we either need to reduce the number of rooms or we need to find another location for the project. We are against any variance that would set a future negative precedent and projects that permanently destroy the downtown landscape. When these large projects are developed, there are no do-overs, and the glut of student housing projects is proof of that. Our community and residents deserve smart growth that we can be proud of, that we can all enjoy. And the feedback I'm sharing today is, again, firsthand experience on issues. You can't develop a project solely on paper. It has to function and work for everyone in real life. Ordinances are created for a reason, and I agree they deserve some flexibility. But what we're asking and what is before the commission now is 258 spaces that are required and a deviation to 121. This is this represents 55% less spaces than would be required by the ordinance. And even at 1 space per hotel room, which is what the standard we were held to, that their development is still 56 spaces short. So we do appreciate everybody's time and comments. I would like to ask the following 3 questions, and hopefully they can be addressed at some point. The first would be, prior to the final city council review, is there indeed going to be a parking and traffic study completed that will be public for everyone to view? The second would be to Mr. Cotton and his team, how their benchmarking that they're doing in this would differ from the benchmarking that was performed at our hotel. And the third is, I mentioned earlier the ordinance about the undue adverse effects that was on page 131 of the e-packet. And the staff comment said, the proposed use will not have any undue or adverse impact on the surrounding area. I would love to hear from the staff members about how they arrived at that decision. And thanks again, and hope everyone has a great evening.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's see. I'll take one from the top. Mr. Ray.
Hey, Phil, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I have one question, and then I also want to say something about the parking waiver because I think it's incredibly interesting. My question is, I'm curious as a little bit of the thought process behind having a hotel use be conditional in the urban core. That was just something I was unaware of before this. And then on the parking waiver, I know this is to force discretion later, but it's obviously involved in this discussion. And I just wanted to say, I think it's really amazing and super interesting. You know, I've studied these buildings for a long time as they've happened downtown, whether, you know, largely they have been student housing, and the distaste involved in them, their size, their mass, always has to do with parking, you know. And there are, I heard Parker mention there were some the architects here online from Chicago. I'm super interested in hearing from them about this because I think reduction in parking, on-site parking for new buildings is actually going to help us in the long run. I know it sounds crazy, but to fit 258 parking spots on this site is kind of impossible. And if it is possible, it really only makes the building larger. Through some personal research, I've counted parking spaces in 191 College, Weston Wright, the Standard, 160 Ross, and dissimilar to them having to do with empty bedrooms or not. You know, a lot of these buildings are majority leased. There's an incredible number of empty spots having to do with people who don't own cars, right? That is true. It's happening downtown. I live downtown. And so I think it would be unfortunate to continue forward with downtown development that really dictates a suburban mentality into the urban context. Whatever Ms. Worth said about the Collegiate Hotel and their struggles there, if that's true, I think that's really unfortunate what they were told about having to reduce their rooms or not being able to lease parking somewhere else. That's a suburban mentality. And I think that a reduction in parking for an urban site like this can really be an opportunity for us to get a better urban building. You know, we're dealing with a mess on West Glen Avenue with the hub on campus development. You know, our parking requirements, as egregious as they are forcing that garage to front Glen Avenue and Thomas Street at the corner. You know, and I don't want to blame the developers because our codes are requiring like 900 plus parking spaces for that. So I think the graduate here could be a precedent for the future, and it could be a sign of how high and how suburban our parking regulations are for urban properties. You know, if you look at all of the existing context of the downtown Auburn, all the buildings that we love, none of them have on-site parking. So the fact that this building can fit, you know, 121 in one basement level, that's great. But I think any more to it would be destructive. It would force the building to become taller. It would perhaps make the architecture worse, and it would probably require a larger assemblage of land, just like the student housing buildings. So I just think that's a really interesting discussion. And I wanted some of those comments to be on the record for the commission and others to hear, because you know, as we move forward into the 21st century, parking in urban context is going to become a lot different. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that. And then my question still from the beginning about the thought process of why hotel uses in urban core would be conditional. I'm just kind of interested in that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see. David Moore.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Go
All
ahead.
right, thank you very much. This is Dave Moore. I'm a resident of Auburn. Up front, thank you for allowing me to speak. And I don't have any business interests, but I have been watching zoning and variance regulations over the years here. And this one, I'm all for business growth, but the idea of severing probably Auburn's most critical issue, parking, from the approval, I think is irresponsible to the citizens of Auburn, and is also irresponsible to the developers. Once this is approved, really the parking decision has been made, and the idea that we're going to retract an approval based upon some future study, we've never seen any real precedence to that. I'm concerned about differences in standards that the worst presented. And I also acknowledge the idea of the urban idea that was previously presented. The fact of life is this is going to be a max occupancy hotel if we get over the COVID issues. And max occupancies are going to bring max traffic and max cars on game days and other issues. And I don't believe this project should be approved when a critical aspect of it is administratively severed from that approval. So although we can treat parking administratively, I don't think as a community and as a planning project, we should treat the parking as a severable entity. And the building, its structure, its formation, its density ought to be considered or ought to be inseverable from the support requirements for that building, just as it was for the worst as well. So I adamantly disagree with the idea that we can administratively sever Auburn's most critical issue and treat that on an independent path and an independent decision cycle while allowing this to continue, because basically we've made the decision, and whatever conclusion we arrive at in the future is really of no value. So thank you for allowing me to speak. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Okay, is there anybody else? I see 23 attendees. Nobody else's hands are up. So I am going to close the public hearing. All right, so we have a number of, sounds like there's a number of concerns. I guess I'd like to just kind of start off by asking some of the questions to address some of the things that were brought up, and then we can go from there. I think we had a discussion already on the parking and the reason behind separating the decision. I'd like to hear some more from the commission on that sort of thing. I see Parker. Let me finish my thought here, and then I'll unmute you there. So I'd be interested in hearing some more comments from the commission on having this separate. I'm a little bit concerned about that myself, because it is such a big, there's such a big demand for the parking, at least the way we have our rules and ordinances laid out. So that's one piece that I would like to have some more discussion on. The other thing was while we don't necessarily want to go back and rehash history, I'm kind of interested. Is there a use map or a zoning map of this area? And I'm kind of interested where the Collegiate Hotel is versus where this proposed Graduate Hotel is going to be. Are they in the same zoning and use area? They have the same rules laid out in both locations?
Well, this is obviously an urban core property we're talking about. The Collegiate, I have to have one of my staff folks take a look at that. I'll ask. That's not. One of my staff check on the zoning for the Collegiate. I mean for the Collegiate. Because it's right there on the edge of basically the urban neighborhood and the urban core district. So it is also urban core, and the Collegiate was also granted a parking waiver, and that parking waiver was granted administratively. We've granted parking waivers for several other hotels in the past, and those were granted administratively. That's just for historical purposes. This is a conditional use. This is under the purview of the Planning Commission. There's no question about it. So that's certainly at the commission's pleasure as to how they want to proceed with this application. Okay. I was simply just stating how those responsibilities are delegated in the ordinance itself, as far as that goes. But there were a lot of questions. Okay. If you have any particular questions for me, I'll do my best to answer them.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. Now, there was also a question about prior to the city council being this being put before the city council for final approval. If there would be if the park, there's two pieces to this. Is there going to be a traffic study that would be complete by then? And then what about, would there be a parking decision being made by then? Is that anticipated to happen, or is it going to be?
Well, given the current path that the conditional use application is on, and presuming that the commission disposes of it, it would appear before the council on Tuesday evening. The traffic, in the normal course of operation, the traffic study is something that's relegated to the staff to review and analyze. And that is often done typically prior to DRT and reviewed through that DRT process, which again is an administrative process. And I can tell you, as the one responsible for the parking waiver, I'm not going to have a decision on that issue prior to Tuesday night.
Okay.
If I did, it would probably be a poor one.
Okay, and then another kind of follow on would be there was some, I guess during this, the staff report was made, and there was apparently there are some comments that were made there that says there would be no adverse effects, on by this property being approved. And can we kind of address, how that decision was arrived at?
Well, I think it was an easy decision to make. You're in the heart of downtown Auburn, and you've got a hotel proposed to go there. If we say this would have an adverse impact, then I think we would say about half of the uses in downtown would have an adverse impact, because this doesn't have an adverse impact. It's exactly the type of use you want to see in an urban environment.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. All right, so I want to go ahead and recognize Parker Lewis. He's one of the representatives, and let's see what he has to say there. Go ahead, Parker.
Thanks, Phil. I'm going to try to address a couple of things that were brought up. I think Stone Ray mentioned really something very interesting in terms of that, trying to strike that balance between suburban parking, which our current zoning ordinance, if you look at the hotel parking requirements, it really is based on a suburban model. We've got a lot of parking spaces required for uses within the context of the hotel, the restaurant, of the bar, the meeting space. Those uses don't require parking in the urban core. So that's a lot of that is what Forrest has to digest. And we obviously appreciate the time he's going to need to review and look at that. So there's a lot to consider there, but Stone mentioned it. If Forrest's answer is, hey, you've got to provide this parking on site, then what we've got to look at is, do we do, a second level of parking? Does the building get taller? And that's kind of what Stone was mentioning. So there's a lot, there's some pluses and minuses and pros and cons that we've got to look at as a community, as well as this project. The reality of it, though, is, and Forrest just touched on it, what we're here tonight to obtain is a conditional use approval from you guys. In other words, is a hotel an appropriate use at this location? Now, things like traffic study and adverse impacts to the surrounding areas, all of those things have to be reviewed. All of those things have to be a part of the project. And, as well as Forrest's sort of parking review and staff's parking review. We've submitted this building with this 177 keys. If we can't fit that many keys, then we may have to adjust. I mean, all of that's going to there's a lot to still flesh out about this project, but we really have to start with, can we do a hotel here?
The use.
And the use, and that's what we're here for. Back to the traffic study question, absolutely we have to have a traffic study. But that traffic study is going to have to incorporate a university that is in session with students. Not all of us hunker down in the midst of a COVID crisis. So we acknowledge we've got to do a traffic study. We're going to do a traffic study, but we also really need to do that traffic study in about September, when students are back, hopefully, as opposed to trying to fire one off in May before a city council meeting. But again, we really need to be able to know from you guys as the Planning Commission and from City Council that this is an appropriate use. There's still some details that have to be worked out about parking, about number of units, and about a development agreement with the City of Auburn. Recently, the city has made Wright Street a two-way street with a left turn here at Magnolia and a right turn. They got rid of on-street parking in the area. They've changed the configuration of Wright Street to allow urban development and urban flow to be better than it was, 18 months ago. So all of that has to be considered. So we're happy to answer any other questions. I think I covered those. If there's something I missed, just holler.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Well, okay, let's start with Warren McCord.
Well, thank you, Phil. I wanted to make a few comments to my fellow commissioners. I think Stone raised a very good question. Why would we have a hotel as a conditional use in our urban core? And the only answer I can think for that is that when we first started this type of zoning, performance-based zoning, there was a lot of skepticism in the city. And you may recall we had a lot of uses based on conditional use. And we realized that was a kind of an ineffective exercise because a lot of uses are perfectly compatible based on experience in other places in certain areas. Where else would you want a hotel if not downtown? So in my opinion, it's a moot question. It is a compatible use. Another point or two to keep in mind, all of us have traveled and all of us have gone to college towns and all of us have gone to hotels adjacent to campus and give them our keys to a valet, and we don't know where our car goes. And that's what this place is going to be doing, I'm sure, is have valet parking. Valet parking, they take care of the car. I don't know where it goes. If they have to go to Opelika with it, that's their business. They take care of that. Secondly is, I've gone to many hotels without a car because I have flown to the city, and I think a hotel of this caliber will have a lot of people coming in by air as opposed to those that are hotels that are out near the interstate where many people come by car. So I can't think of a project that I would find more desirable in our downtown than this particular project. One other comment having to do, of course, the Collegiate Hotel, which is a wonderful asset to us. But in its development, there was a whole lot of negotiation going on between the city staff and the owners and the Commercial Development Authority and other things to provide them the incentives as well as the variances that made their project effective, compatible, and able to possible, feasible. So as we struggle today, it's not our problem, in my opinion, to find parking. Forest is going to work with the data, the developers, and other members of the staff to determine whether or not they can find the parking spaces or deal with the parking issue. Our job is to find out or to make a determination of compatibility of this use at this site, and I certainly think it is.
Well, Phil, can I
Okay.
don't know, I have my hand raised, but this is not it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So, well, Warren, my issue is not the use. I actually believe in a use of a downtown hotel 100%. I do agree that there are parking issues. One thing is we have everybody's wanting parking in Auburn to get better. And within the next 18 to 24 months, it will. And yes, we're looking at a conditional use right now tonight. But one of our bullet points, if we approve with staff comments, is allowing parking to go from 258 to 121. It's on the sheet of paper. And I, for one, am not okay with that. I do feel like there should be one per room. And if there's not, then are you valeting my car? Are you using the private Auburn Bank? Are you asking the city to use the public Wright Street? What is the plan? And tonight I learned that it was an administrative decision. So again, I go back to, if we approve with staff comments, parking is part of this. It doesn't tell me on this sheet of paper what I'm doing is administrative. It says, as a planning commissioner, you either approve or do not approve this. And so that's where I am. The use is not a problem. But I do feel like parking is an issue. People who come to these games, we're not in New York. Yes, I've flown. Yes, I take an Uber to a hotel, but we're in Auburn. And if you're coming for a game, more than likely you're driving a car. Somewhere that car must go.
I just need to make a respectful clarification. By approving this application, you are not approving the parking. If you are concerned about the parking and would like to wait until, I'm just giving you what your options are, and would like to find out what the disposition is of my finding on the parking issue, then that can be done. And that's certainly entirely up to the discretion of the commission. But I have to say that by approving this application, it does not approve the parking.
Yeah, that's the words do not, that the words, if you read them, it basically says what we're agreeing to is that a parking waiver is submitted to the planning director and is under review. That's what we're agreeing to. We aren't saying do less parking. Well, I think if we do staff comments, then we're not making a decision on parking at this point. We're giving it over to the planning director to review.
And as far as the use application goes, that's entirely up to what the commission sees fit to do with that. You can go ahead and act on it. You can postpone it. That's all with you.
Okay, Mac Lazenby.
I don't know how many definitions we've got for hotels, maybe just one, but there's certainly different types of them. And not to exaggerate, but this is more of a pedestrian-driven hotel as opposed to a hotel or motel that's out on the interstate that get all of their customers via vehicles. A lot of this group here is going to be college-oriented, and it's going to be pedestrian with reference to its location downtown. So, of course, I think when we do our review, hopefully you'll maybe delineate the differences in uses and not just put all the requirements under one definition of hotel. I'm certainly in favor of the use, but I wouldn't want to make the motion that included the approval of the waiver. And what I understand is if a motion to approve with staff comments would not be approving the waiver for parking. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. And that's a very good point. Yeah. We do only have one definition for a hotel, and there are significant differences in hotels in a suburban context versus an urban context. And those are exactly the kinds of issues that I'm tasked with delving into. And like I said, this is a very important decision, and I'm going to take whatever time is necessary to get it right.
Go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, I was just going to say that what we are.
Oh, wait a minute.
Excuse me.
Matt, I was just saying, Mac, were you finished? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I really wasn't. I'm more prepared to make a motion, but I would want to hear Warren's comments. I'll rest till I hear him.
Well,
okay.
Basically,
go ahead, Warren.
Basically what we would be doing is approving the conditional use subject to resolution of the waiver request by the planning director. Is that not right, Forrest?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Unless there are any other adjustments you want to make or conditions you want to modify, but yes, you're correct.
So basically, it's not done until that issue is taken care of, but we've done our work, which is considering it compatible use for this site downtown.
Well, okay, now I'm a little bit confused on that then based on that conversation. If I read this planning comment, it's basically saying that a waiver is being considered by the planning director. It doesn't say we're making any kind of decision. And so unless we're going to change the language and say that we're going to make it contingent upon that decision, that's not what this is saying.
I could get behind that.
Am I missing something?
The comment was just intended to bring your attention. Just like conditional use application site plan that may be deficient in one aspect of the site plan. That aspect that
You're cutting out.
it resolved or at a time later, not necessarily, at planning commission.
I'm sorry, I didn't really make that out. Did anybody else hear
I
that?
think what Logan was trying to say, and he is kind of choppy, the audio is not good, is that that comment is made and basically it's really for the record. So it's really to
Right.
inform the planning commission what the situation is with the parking and the fact that it's being reviewed by the director.
Okay, Mac, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd move we approve item 19 on the agenda, subject to staff comments, but be very clear that we are not approving at this time a waiver for parking.
Okay, before I ask for
Second.
a second, I'd like to recognize Warren McCord again. He has his hand raised.
Oh, I must be because it didn't take it down, but the fact is that when we approve the use, subject to meeting all of the criteria in the staff comments, that would include the waiver. So it's not a deal until the waiver is granted. We don't grant the waiver. It's like often we have approved something subject to it getting a variance from the BZA. We approve our part and then they do their part. So what we're doing today is approving the conditional use subject to all of the staff comments, which includes getting a waiver for the parking.
I disagree. I don't think that's what it's saying.
That's what I'm saying. What do you mean, Phil?
You got a motion on the floor unless you want to amend it.
You're right. So we
can read it back to us.
Well, we have a motion, and the motion is to approve the case as it stands. But we made the point. Go ahead and finish the, Mac, can you go ahead and rephrase your your motion that specifically regarding the parking?
My motion is to approve item 19 on the agenda with staff comments, but make it very clear we are not addressing the waiver for parking at this time.
Okay, so that's a motion, and I guess before now I've got a Robert's Rules kind of issue. Warren, you've made kind of an amendment to that, haven't you? So that's a second motion.
I'm struggling with how to deal with that personally, in terms of my.
You don't have seconds.
You got a second on the main motion.
Let's have a second first.
I think you have a second on the main motion, and no one has made an amendment to this point, I don't think.
I did not hear the second.
I don't have a second.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought it came from one of the ladies, but maybe I was mistaken.
All right, if I don't, do I have a second? Going once? Going twice? Okay, that motion is dead on the table. So let's have another motion.
Well, I move that we approve case number 00223, Graduate Hotels conditional use for approval, subject to the meeting all of the staff comments.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. So to me, up the discussion again on what the staff, how do we interpret the staff comments? I think we have a difference in how we're interpreting.
Staff, how did you intend for them to be interpreted?
Yeah,
It's just a comment. The comment under the planning is acknowledging that the parking requirements as reflected on the site plan have not been met. But the request for the waiver is what I'm currently deliberating, and that's also cited there. I don't think you need to do another. If you want to approve the application, I think you just approve it as is.
So move then.
Okay, so that's where we're at. So I have a motion. Any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Amber, go ahead.
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
No.
Marcus is recusing himself. McCord,
Yes.
Reese,
Say again, Nanette.
I'm here.
Oh.
I
Here
approve
with
the
a yes.
use. I approve the use. I am struggling with the parking.
Well, we're not approving the parking.
Right.
Right. We are approving though with this use that it's an administrative waiver.
We're proving that if it gets the administrative, we're saying the use is compatible.
Wait a minute. We've done with the discussion. We're having a vote.
Yeah.
Right and ball.
I'm in agreement with Nanette. I guess I'll vote. I think I'll abstain also under the circumstances. I think we're doing a disservice without resolving the parking.
Yes.
At this point, it'll never come back to us. So I'm abstaining.
Abstaining.
Okay. So what do you have, Amber?
That is a vote of 3-1 for the use.
So we have one abstention, two abstains, and one. Well, I guess we have 3 abstains when we include Marcus. Yes. So it's 3-1, and that passes. Okay, on to the next one. Mike Hubbard Boulevard Street Renaming, PL 2020-00227, Mr. Howell.
Yes, the recommendation before you is to the City Council to rename the following street, which is Mike Hubbard Boulevard, to Bent Creek Road. Forrest, if you'll advance the slide, please. This road is located north of the intersection of East Glen Avenue and Bent Creek Road, and is bordered by the industrial as well as comprehensive development districts. This is on the east side of town, just to the east side of the airport, and was remanded to you by the City Council at their April 21st meeting as a consideration for the renaming. The City of Auburn Addressing and Street Naming Manual guides our assignment of addresses and street names, and it in there stipulates that streets running in one direction should have one name only and should have the same name throughout its entire length. Based on that, staff recommends approval of that name change, extending the name of Bent Creek Road to the terminal of the airport. We did receive some correspondence on this, to include recommendations for other names and considerations. The first was a recommendation to consider the name Benny G. Atkins. And then the second was a consideration to rename it Robert G. Pitts. The picture before you is the right-of-way of what is currently Mike Hubbard Boulevard, showing the original right-of-way of Twin City Court, and then the extension beyond it in 2008. And again, staff recommends approval. subject to any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, this requires can you hear me? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
This requires a public hearing, so at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing for anybody that would like to speak. And looking at 15 attendees, and there are no hands raised. So I will close the public hearing, and we'll move on to questions, comments, or a motion.
It's Mac. I'd make a motion to approve item number 20 on the agenda as recommended by the staff. And the other names that were suggested were certainly honorable, but I think we discussed those at length at the packet meeting.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Amber?
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord, Warren,
Oh, he's muted.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
There you go.
Reese,
Yes.
Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Okay, moving along to our last couple of items, either of which require a public hearing. The first is item number 21, East Auburn Distribution Substation. This is a case 2018 at 00710. Mr. Cox.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a one-time 6-month extension of a conditional use approval for the Alabama Power Substation located on Dean Road. You've got a number of exhibits in your packet. Essentially, their approval is scheduled to expire the middle of next month. They've had some logistical issues and challenges. They've got a very large project underway that one sequence leads to another sequence, and the sequencing is fairly rigid. And so because they're working on something else, they can't get to this right now. And that the prior sequence needs to be online and available before they can finish this up. So they've asked for a 6-month extension. If you see fit to approve that, that should give them the time they need to get everything finished by roughly mid-December.
Okay, thank you. Well, like I said, this does not require public hearing, so any comment, motion?
Move to approve item 21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Let's see any. Amber?
Bledsoe,
Yes.
Chancellor,
Yes.
Lazenby,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
McCord,
Yes.
Reese, did not know, she drop out?
Dropped out.
Okay, Reitenbaugh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Then we'll move on to the last item, which is West Case U-Haul. Another case from 2018. It was 00710. That's not the right number. This was, I'm sorry, 2018 00725. And this is a 6-month extension request as well. Mr. Weintraut, are you there? Is it Mr. Cotton?
I am here. Yes, this is similar to the last case. They're requesting a 6-month one-time extension. You approved this use as a commercial support for climate control storage building and warehouse and a road service use, truck and trailer sharing. The applicant states the reason for the requesting the extension is due to some challenges with trying to buy the property. This was approved by the city council in December. of 2018. I included the site plan and the elevations which were submitted and approved. And there's the letter that the applicant wrote, and I'd be happy to answer any of the questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Again, this one does not require a public hearing, so questions, comments, or motion?
Motion to approve item 22.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, go ahead, Amber.
Wayne, am I muted?
Oh, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Chancellor? Lavender?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
McCord?
Yes.
Nanette is still gone. Bob Reitenbaugh?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. That brings us to the end. Is there anything you have to say there, Mr. Cotton?
No, sir. Just to say that hopefully this will be our last Zoom meeting and we'll be back in.
What's the matter? You say. All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I think we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Bye-bye.